So welcome once again. Deeper inquiry number 15 on rethinking impact, kind of a part two to the session with Toby Lowe. And in this session, we have Marcus Jenal from Fondation Botnar in Switzerland. And we will have a presentation of their approach to evaluation and strategic learning with an emphasis on learning. And this is also an iterative process, and it's really beautiful to see that Marcus conceives of learning as a process that's ongoing, iterative, and generative, and constantly adapted. And through our conversations with Marcus suggested that we also have two sides of this equation, which is funder and funded. So we are bringing on Adriana Algarin, who is the MEL, Monitoring Evaluation Learning Manager of NuestraBarranquilla, a project that she will also tell you more about, but we will get perspectives from both funder and partner on the ground, how they conceive and collaborate around developing a process for learning that shifts a little bit away from the normative demonstrate impact, show that we're doing amazing things culture that we're almost all subjected to sooner or later. And I'm really excited to see what we hear today. And then there's going to be space in the end to ask questions and showcase your questions, challenges, and approaches to evaluation, impact, and beyond. So with that, I would pass the baton to Marcus.
Thank you very much, Ivan. So nice to be here. Great to see you all. Also great to see some familiar faces from my side. Yeah, it's a great pleasure. It's a bit intimidating. It always feels like coming on such a thing means that we figured things out. I can assure you we haven't. We're trying, we're failing, we're muddling through, and I'm happy to share that. So please bear with us. This is not going to be anything like perfect or blueprinty, or if there is such a thing as perfect in blueprint. But we are constantly learning, and we're enjoying the learning, and we're enjoying learning to learn, and we're enjoying that with others, including also predominantly our partners. And that's why I'm super happy to have Adriana here with me. But let me tell you first 2 words or 3 about Fondation Botnar. And I want to share this screen. I hope this works. So we are a philanthropic foundation. We are based in Switzerland. And as any organization, we have a vision and a mission, as you do. And our vision really is about a world where young people thrive. So our focus, the people we want to work with and for, are young people. And very deliberately say with and for, because we want to approach our work in a very participatory way, in as much as possible a youth-led way, or at least to have youth voices very much involved in the work our partners do, but to an extent also in the work we do. We believe that young people should have a real say in what is happening around them, and I think NuestraBarranquilla is a really beautiful example of how this can be done well. But those praises will go to them, not to us. Yeah, to make this happen, we bring together partners from different sectors, spark meaningful conversations. We form collaborations, partnerships. We hope we're driving innovation and hopefully make a lasting difference in young people's lives. I don't want to say too much, but there is like kind of how we work. Is important to know that we work in 4 themes. All of these themes have something to do with either digital or urban or both. So these are the kind of spaces we play in, digital spaces, urban spaces, because we're convinced that young people nowadays most of the young people live in urban spaces globally, and many young people are active in digital spaces, or if they're not, that's also a problem. Within those spaces, we work on the themes of enabling livable and sustainable city systems. We work on the theme of promoting mental health. We work on enabling a human rights-based digital transformation, and also we work on strengthening quality public education. So each of these themes has a portfolio behind it of various projects and programs. And the program that Adriana is working on and NuestraBarranquilla is part of our enabling livable and sustainable city systems. And I would like to hand over to Adriana now to tell us a little bit more about NuestraBarranquilla.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you everyone that has joined. It's a pleasure to be with you. So just a little bit about our program. We are part of a bigger global network. So it's our city, and we are in 5 different cities in the world. In Latin America, we are in Manta in Ecuador and Barranquilla in Colombia. So what we are trying to do is kind of to strengthen the youth ecosystem in the city. So all actors working with or towards youth well-being actually act together and can see what common goals they can and we can reach, so we actually make a change in people's lives. For that, we are promoting 2 things, especially collaboration as a way to build trust across the different sectors, especially with young people, and also to strengthen youth involvement in city decision making, in our own decision making as initiative. Mostly is that. I think something very important for me to highlight right now in terms of impact is that if you want to see impact, you have to take the time. And we are very happy that Fondation Botnar shares that view. So we are an initiative that is working for 10 years in the city. We are in our 3rd year, finishing our 3rd year. So it's exciting to work with a partner that see the importance of taking the time that it takes to actually work and see long-lasting impact.
Thank you, Adriana, and we will hear obviously more from Adriana in a bit. I would like to first frame a little bit our approach to strategic learning and evaluation at the foundation, and then go into more of a conversation with Adriana around how this plays out for them and how it lands for them and what they're doing on the ground. So this is what we kind of articulated as the purpose of the strategic learning and evaluation function at the foundation. SLE is strategic learning and evaluation. We all like these 3-letter acronyms. So SLE aims to help us to better understand what difference we make to whom, how, and how we can continuously get better. Now there is a lot in there, and I would like to unpack that a little bit. So what does us mean? Who do we mean when we say us? Well, in a way, for me as strategic learning innovation lead, the foundation is a very important client, if you want, or partner, both the management office that operationalizes the strategy, but also the board. But then, of course, the partner is a very big part of the us or the we, but also we all want to share beyond the foundation with the wider public. What does understand mean? We want to find the shared meaning of the evidence that we collect together, and also base our decisions on this evidence. What does the difference mean? It's about our shared contribution to shifting systemic conditions for young people. Whom? It's to whom do we make a difference? It is young people, youth organization, institutions that work with young people and for young people. It is important to know how we make a difference. One thing is to show that we make a difference, but if we want to learn and improve, it's important to understand how we make a difference or how we failed to make a difference, to be able to do more of that. We also want to improve and learn over time. And in order to do that, we also need to better understand the how and not only the if. We have a few principles that we cherish quite a bit in our work in strategic learning. First, we focus on what is actually happening. A lot of monitoring, evaluation, and learning focuses on what is planned. So we have log frames, we have objectives, we have outcomes, outcome targets, impact target, and so on. This is for us, might be important, but what is really important is what happens. In the reports, we encourage our partners to tell us what happened, what changed, What did you observe? What did you measure? Rather than did you achieve that particular result? So we're not checking off any predefined goals, but really look at understanding what changed and how. We also believe that learning should be done with others, not just us in Switzerland. We're learning and we're not sharing anything. Also because we're not very close. Context plays such an important role in learning, so we need to have the people who live in the context part of that. Because change doesn't follow straight lines, as Toby also showed with his spaghetti diagram thing. We have to stay adaptive. We use learning as a way to stay responsive and adjust our strategies. And when new challenges or opportunities emerge, we can react to them, we hope. At the same time, I think we do need some kind of rigor, but we need to balance that rigor with practicality. It doesn't work if we have very high rigor standards, and then people are only focused in getting those numbers, but are not actually able to do anything practical. So we do want high quality evidence that we can use to make decisions, but it needs to be usable and it needs to be collectible by our partners and by us. Finally, or not finally, actually, equity and inclusion is quite important to us. We don't just care about what we learn, we care about how we learn and with whom we learn. That means making sure that young people's voices are front and center throughout the process. And also there, I'm really looking forward to Adriana sharing a bit more about how they work with young people. Finally, we take a systems perspective. Probably no surprise there. We live in systems, we work in systems, we breathe systems, we are part of systems. Challenges young people face don't exist in a vacuum. They're shaped by the broader system. So while we do look at individual projects, we also aim to bring the system together. I'm sorry, I'm going to show one nice little diagram. I couldn't resist. We have strategies, obviously. Everyone has strategies. So we have strategies, we have a philanthropic strategy, and we have theme strategies. And within the themes, each of our 4 themes has what we call a strategic intent. That's where they want to go with the theme. They have what we call domains of change, which is like, these are the big areas we want to make a difference, or we think a difference is required and we can contribute to it as a foundation. And we have strategic actions that somehow show, that somehow articulate what we think we can fund or do. What we do is we articulate still some outcomes, even though we don't see them as objectives or target, but as assumptions. We assume that these are probably the things that are going to happen or that need to happen as preconditions for the wider change. We call those outcome baskets because you want to keep them broad, so we can still adjust the outcomes to the contexts we work in. And we have so-called change hypotheses. This is then translated on the partner side to a theory of change. Probably most of you are familiar with the idea of a theory of change. A theory of change essentially describes, this is what we're going to do, this is how this interacts with the context we're in, this is how we think the change will happen, and this is what we expect to come out of it. And this will then lead in a feedback loop. We collect evidence, we make sense of it, what have we achieved, how can we explain what happened, how did we get there, but also what's the role of contextual factors. Actually, I have 2 diagrams. I'm sorry. I'm one of these persons who likes these diagrams. I'm rushing through a bit because I'm really looking forward to the conversation with Adriana. So you can go back to the recording, go to 0.5 speed and watch it again. We don't produce evidence in Basel. The people who produce evidence are people like Adriana and the young people she works with. They use that to learn, reflect, adapt, manage their programs. So that for us is the main thing. This is the core. If the partner is successful, then we think we as a foundation are successful. We still have reports. So Adriana is writing reports for us or her colleagues, and they're sending them to us because we like to know what's happening. We like to know what change is happening. We like to know what our partners do, what they enjoy, what they celebrate, but also maybe what didn't work. So we get these reports. But we also visit my colleagues, they visit. I was in Barranquilla before. I'm going to Vietnam soon. So we would like to see, we would like to immerse ourselves, is that a word? In the context, and we observe and we bring that back as well. But we also play that back to our partners, what we observe. We do commission external evaluations where we bring in evaluation consultants to run an evaluation, but never with the idea that we need to check that our partners do their work well, but always also with a learning intention. We always do the evaluations together and plan them together with our partners. And then we come together in joint sense making and learning sessions as well. Phew, that was kind of racing through. So I hope you are hanging in there, because now I think it's going to get really interesting. I would like to ask Adriana, because I was talking about us being a funder who is interested mainly in our partners being successful and our partners using monitoring, evaluation, learning, reflection, sense making to adapt and manage their programs. So I'm really curious for you all to hear Adriana talk a bit about how does this play out in her reality? How does this show up in her day-to-day work in NuestraBarranquilla?
Thank you, Marcus. I think for us as practitioners, to, to use some kind of common word, a big change is that working with a funder as Botnar can ask us to change perspectives on how we see what we do, why we do it, and to really understand what you were mentioning before, is change happening and how it's happening. Working with NuestraBarranquilla, we see with the partners that we work with that people are still very used to this dynamic of measuring and have these hard data indicators. But to bring people together, to reflect on what is working and what is not working, and what challenges are you having to implement this particular project that we have sub-grants as well. So that we are funding, that you are working with us, but maybe it's not what you were expected to happen. I think that is kind of the biggest maybe change for us as practitioners, to have this new perspective on how we do things, and also the participatory principle. So we don't imagine working without having discuss or hear what the people we're working with needs and think is important. And it's not always easy. We are a big city. We have a lot of youth people and working at the system level. So you have to bring a lot of different actors from private sector. That is a huge actor in Barranquilla. And you have to bring the local government, and you have to bring the NGOs working for young people. It's not as easy, but then you have to find ways. For example, we did a participatory diagnostic when we were starting, not just by running surveys, but actually meeting with young people through play and games and focus groups to really understand in the different contexts of the city what young people need and what are their dreams and their challenges. So I think that for now will be kind of the main thing.
I know that I would like to talk a bit more about the participatory aspect, because I know you're running different groups of young people, and you're using some sort of a participatory action research or participatory action learning approach. So it would be really interesting to hear. Maybe you can use one example of a group. How is this playing out with a youth group, and what are they doing? What are the ideas they have, the projects they would like to implement?
Well, let's say that it works at different levels. So when we started and we were creating NuestraBarranquilla, it was impossible to imagine NuestraBarranquilla with the young people having a say on it. So we did these activations in different neighborhoods in the city. trying to understand what will be valuable for young people to find an initiative like us. And in that sense, we held like a whole uh, jornada. So I'm bilingual, sorry. Well, no, I'm not sorry about being bilingual, but we have a whole session, a full day session with young people to kind of imagine our brand. So if you see my shirt and our logos and the pictures, it's because we use what young people said that is important for them. So we have little logos to represent mental health or represent engagement with the city, um, to really appreciate like public goods, for example. And that was important for us. And then you have to have this reiteration when you meet with those same people again and to see if things are going the way they thought it will go, kind of to adjust in that sense. We also do that with our youth community. So we have these people that we try to meet at least once a month or kind of 2 months to have like city tours. But we really want, what we're trying to do is to bring people to places of the city that maybe they have not been before, to meet with other young people, especially youth leaders that they have not met before, and to see what they are doing. And also we have these cycles. For me, it's like learning cycles. You have to pause and reflect with the same people you are trying to engage with to see if what you are doing is really what you should be doing, or how can you improve what you are doing, or better represent what they need and that you can actually provide or help to achieve. So I would say those two.
The challenge for us then is, of course, that first of all, you cannot predict what the results will look like. And maybe afterwards, Adriana, you can talk a bit about maybe achievements or things that worked or didn't work. But for us, it's like, well, traditionally as a funder, you can just give some performance indicators and then they will be reported back. And either the targets, the objectives were hit or not. And everyone who was with Toby's session last time knows why this is not a good idea. But now we're getting these reports from all these different programs, and all are different. All have different outcomes, different achievements, different things that happened. And how can we now kind of make a statement about where, as a foundation, are we successful, or kind of are we making a difference? And this is why we came up with these outcome baskets that I talked about earlier. So when Adriana is sharing with us, oh, we now have this youth office in the municipality, then I take this as an outcome and I look, oh, where does this fit, right? And I can see, oh, there we have a basket about youth participation in city planning, and I can put it in there. So that I can do for all the reports of all the different grants of all the different partners we have, and I can see how these baskets fill up differently. And I can see that we have a lot of youth participation, but not a lot of policy change, for example. I'm making this up, but I can see these baskets filling up in different ways. And I can slide this and say, well, but I only want to see that for the Our City programs, which are 5 out of a whole collection, or I can only look at Latin America, or I can look at across the board. So it helps me to understand where is change happening, what kind of change is happening, or what change that we expected is not actually happening, or is at least not being reported to us. And this still needs a lot of fine tuning because we are very much at the beginning of this. It also needs a different understanding of reporting. And maybe that's something, Adriana, we could look at as well and discuss a little bit, because I know you've been using our new reporting format, that we try to change it so that the reporting is more aligned with this kind of thinking.
Yeah, I think for just thinking about what you were just saying, the domains of change are quite helpful in that sense, because at a different scale is similar for us. Like, yes, we are just in one city, but we are an ambitious initiative. So we are trying to do different things at the same time with different groups of people. So it is also sometimes it can feel overwhelming. Uh, but the domains of change help us to make sense of the data and kind of help us to build like rigorous evidence. So yeah, you have to be practical about how to you gather that evidence, but I think the rigor is on asking or try to ask the right questions. In that sense, for me, the domains of change kind of work as categories of analysis. Like if this is kind of a normative idea of this is what the change that we want to bring into the city, and what things are we doing and how people are perceiving what we are doing, and not just what we are doing, what they are doing, because we are more an enabler in the city than actually someone that is doing things for other people. We see NuestraBarranquilla and the whole network as enablers. We articulate and we try to articulate the system and the actors on it, and try to provide resources that maybe are not available right now and strength capacities that made them to go further in what they already do, especially when with young people. So we have these programs like leadership programs, and it's not just about we telling you how to be a leader. They are already leaders, but it's how we can support and how can we make sure that open opportunities and spaces for you to be the best leader that you can. And then when you're trying to translate that into outcomes and impact, you have to talk with people. And in that sense, domains of change or the what you call the baskets are quite helpful. So if you want to actually improve that they feel that they are able to have a say in the city, what kind of questions do I ask? And how do I interpret what they are saying as well? And in that sense, the experience of people is also very important. It's not me with the PhD and the mail team and the data analyst who can say that if this works or not. It's people experiencing these things that can actually say if it's working or not. Uh, so maybe I got lost a little bit there, but I just wanted to expand a little bit more of how domains of change kind of articulates with being a participatory thing that is also working with action research principles.
And maybe to make this a bit more tangible, so the domains of change that we have for the city theme, they are empowered youth and communities, equitable partnerships, effective city systems, transformative innovation, and global learning. So those are the areas that we specifically look for change, because we think that to achieve the strategic intent behind the livable and sustainable cities theme, those are areas where we expect we need to make a contribution. And this helps us to, because this is used by all our different programs. So this helps us then to also look across different programs. And but the learning doesn't only happen between us and Adriana or NuestraBarranquilla. What she mentioned is that we have 5-hour city programs globally, um, 2 in Africa, 2 in Latin America, and 1 in Europe. And they meet regularly to also exchange and learn horizontally. So it's not just that there's a hub and spoke model where they report to us and maybe we learn with them during visits, but we also, what we're trying to do is really connect different partners horizontally so they can exchange practicalities and results or yeah, whatever comes up. Maybe Adriana, you want to say something about that as well?
I think for that is important. I think the main thing for me is to take the time to pause and reflect. And you can do that at different scales. You can do that with the people you work with as a team in NuestraBarranquilla. You can do that with the local partners that you engage with and young people you work with. And it's very important for us to learn from our colleagues in the other our cities. Because yes, context is different, but it's actually very helpful to see what things are in common and what you can learn from each other. And we have like bi-monthly sessions with Sur, our program manager, that help us to analyze challenges or find new ways to do certain things. And maybe you know can replicate exactly the same program or activity because we are in different contexts, but it sparks something in you. And it's like, oh, yes, you can also engage with people in this other way. Oh, and I think that's very important also to feel that we're contributing not just in our city, but this idea of Foundation Botnar to make cities in different places of the world more fit for young people. So I think that's quite helpful. And now in Nuestra Barranquilla, we are thinking about how to bring together young people from the different initiatives because it has worked for us. And we think it's important. And all the initiatives, all our cities, we don't engage with young people in the same way. But we think that actually also to bring them together as we do as, I don't know, workers. It can also be quite helpful for them to expand and to see what other people are doing, how young leadership looks like in other places, and maybe to start dreaming or working together for what they can achieve together as well. So hopefully that will be coming soon.
I think we are time to open up for wider conversation. I haven't really talked, we haven't really talked much about challenges, but I'm sure I've seen some challenging questions already, so I'm sure we get there.
Thank you both for all the inputs and for showing us the messy reality of conceptualizing something in a room with great, neat objectives and then applied realities and all the complications that come from that. So that adaptation element to the work and the communication of back and forth of actually having somebody to discuss and reflect with of what matters and what is important, and the highlighting of intent, because intent is always quite different to an absolutism in terms of what we're doing. So what are we intending to do allows partners to feel that the approach is completely different. And I'm really thrown back to standardized testing in schooling that often teaches us to perform rather than actually learn content, marks outweighing the learning that has actually transpired. And often we see this parallelism in the foundation world. All right, thank you both.